Good afternoon. Welcome back to the Sip My Thoughts podcast. Again, I'd like to thank you all for tuning in. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for continuing to rock with me. I greatly appreciate it. If you could follow the Sip My Thoughts podcast on all social media platforms. I'm trying to grow my YouTube channel, so I'm trying to get my face out there more. So you'll be seeing more YouTube content, YouTube shorts. I got my camera back going, so I'm going to be producing and filming some content as well, and just being a lot more creative and a lot more artistic with some things that I'm trying to do. So definitely tap in with me, stay in contact. Again, if you're following me on all social media platforms, you'll see me being more consistent about my content and dropping that content. So thank you all. If you're still here, if you're still listening, you're still rocking, I really do appreciate it. So thank you. I wanted to come back today because there's so much that's happening in the world and so much stuff that I want to talk about, to where I just want to give my take and give my one too as well, just as everyone else is doing. Working in media, you come across stuff every day, and obviously the job is to be unbiased and report the news and report the facts. But when you see certain things, you also want to weigh in and give your takes and learn a little bit more about what's going on, what's being said. And at the end of the day, I feel like I'm competent enough, I have enough experience in this field and in this industry to get some educated takes, and I think that's what's most important as well. I think one of the things about having a podcast or having a platform in general, you get to see, you get to feel and hear what a lot of people think about things, and obviously you have to decide or determine if it's something that resonates with you, if it's something that you can identify with. And I believe a lot of the stuff that I see and a lot of the stuff that I even read and even listen to, whether it's on any like social media, like on TikTok or anything like that, a lot of times I come across this stuff, and I have some opinions and some thoughts about it as well, but I try to come from a more factual and realistic perspective. So this is what today's show is about. So I want to talk a little bit about Diddy. I know obviously Diddy is a hot topic and what he was caught with and stuff like that. But that's not where I want to take it. Also, the verdict regarding the murder of young Dolph is about to come down momentarily. So I'll probably talk about that a little bit as well. I'll also talk about the YSL trial. And I think an important theme in this trial is redemption. So that's something that I'm really curious about, something that I want to talk about, because I think that there is a question in regards to being on trial in this case as well. So I think that's something that is very important to talk about and something that's very important to discuss as well. So again, thank you all for tuning in. Thank you all for being here. So let's get into it. So with Diddy, right? And obviously we can talk about Diddy, we can talk about R. Kelly. I just find it really fascinating to see people that we've idolized or people that we've placed on a pedestal in our culture, for an example, right? It is so interesting to me to see their fall from grace, to see them being accused of things and being, or specifically in R. Kelly's case, there has been documentaries made, like there is factual evidence that exists that he's done some of the things that he's been accused of and he's been found guilty of. There is factual evidence that shows that he actually did those things. So we obviously don't have that on Diddy as of yet. I mean, obviously we've seen the video of him putting his hands on Cassie in a hotel room. That was, we've never seen him like that. But if you see the way someone acts in person and the way that they act out in public, you can kind of imagine that that is who they are behind closed doors as well. Even going back to the Making the Band, like everybody was tuned in to that. I was tuned to that as a teenager, right? And walking to, I think it was Brooklyn, to get the cheesecake or whatever, and just the way in which he was talking and in the way in which he was driving home a point as to, well, I had to do this when I was coming up so and so, so and so. So if I had to do this, why don't y'all have to do it? Obviously, he didn't say those words, but it was just his demeanor. It was the way that he went about trying to drive home a point in order for them to go walk to get cheesecake. And I think at that age, that show came out when I was a teenager, right? So at that age, that kind of stuff can become conditioned in your mind. And you can think, okay, in order for me to be successful, I have to do things that I don't want to do. And I think that just goes without saying anyway. You might have to work a job that you don't like to work. You might have to do something that's outside of your passion in order to get to where it is that you want to be. But just because you have to do those things does not mean that you have to be demeaned in the process. And you have to demean yourself in order to get to where you want to be. Success does not look the same for everyone. And the path to get to where you're trying to get to is not going to take the same path or route to get there as well. So if you just look back at what occurred just in that specific show, for an example, you could probably, or you probably could have guessed that behind closed doors, he might be that same person. He might be that same individual. And now, unfortunately, we're learning, well, not unfortunately, we're learning more about the person that he is behind closed doors, and now that is exposed to the forefront. So, when I saw that he was being indicted, like for years, there have always been rumors about Diddy, his actions, his parties, and I don't think if we really paid enough attention to Cat Williams at the top of the year when he spoke on Shannon Sharp's podcast, for an example. It was so funny. It was so funny the way he talked about Diddy. Diddy want to party, and you gots to tell him no. You gots to tell him no. And I think one of the things that we've forgotten about in society is that the thing that comes along with being a comedian, yeah, there's obviously jokes, there's obviously satire, but at the same time, there is a level to the truth and to the jokes as well. And I think that might have been an underrated aspect of the way that this year started off. Cat Williams, here we are now, 9 months into the year, almost about to be in month 10. Cat Williams really kicked this year off with a bang. And I don't think we knew that it would be what it's become so far. But he absolutely was not lying when he said that, or when he unleashed and uncovered some things about the industry and stuff like that. So I think the thing that struck me most, obviously you can talk about the 1,000 bottles of baby oil, which is nuts, which is crazy. Like, you hear about women going to like Walgreens and places like that, and like I have a cousin who at one point in time she was a couponer. So she had like she has a storage room at her house to where she would have all of these items, and like she would never have to go to the store for like household products, tissue, the essentials that you need for your household. Like, she never ran out of that type of stuff. And so if you had told me that a woman had, well, even still, a woman shouldn't have 1,000 bottles of baby oil. But I don't get that. I don't get why you have 1,000 bottles of baby oil. That is nuts to me. And I think they said they found like over like 700, 800 sex toys or something like that. You are insane to have that type of stuff. So, I mean, that's just the stuff that people talked about, and I don't want to get into that. But I think the thing that is most telling about this is just seeing the stars fall from grace, seeing them do things, or seeing that they have done things behind closed doors that are now coming out and it's being revealed to the public. I mean, it's really something, because you grew up. I mean, let's be honest. I'm a cat that loves R&B and oldies and stuff like that, and love making music. I'm that type of guy. So I grew up on R. Kelly. I grew up on the Bad Boy era and stuff like that. And I'm not even that old, but I was a lover of music growing up as a child. I was in the band. I was in the choir. I was a lover of music. So music is something that's just deeply embedded within me. So obviously I love all genres, and just being a part of the hip hop culture is something that is ingrained in you. So to see these guys go through the things that they're going through publicly and legally, it really just makes you think a lot about the journey of getting to wherever it is that you want to be. And when you really look at the fact, I've heard somebody say once before that when you obtain a lot of success and a lot of financial wealth and things of that nature, you almost feel like you're invincible, you're untouchable, and none of these things that you're doing behind closed doors, you never think that it'll come out. I think that for the longest times, I think the thing that we as black people fail to realize is that a lot of the things that happen outside of our communities with other communities, they are allowed to get away with things, and they are allowed to take things to their graves, and they might pass away, and you'll never know about any of the stuff that they did or any of the acts that they committed. Like I was just even talking to somebody about this the other day. If you think about the fact of, and I can't even say her name, but it's probably because I don't need to mention her name anyway. The woman who came out and said that Emmett Till actually did not whistle at her. Like, imagine, and I don't even want to call it guilt, to be honest. I think at that point, it was just her trying to release the burden off of her and the act in which she committed, which totally turned Black America, and I don't even think you can call it Black America at that time, but a racial act was committed that did not need to be committed, all because of a lie. And the killing of Emmett Till was one of the most gruesome acts of racial violence that we've ever seen, right? And when she finally came out and talked about this and said that he did not actually whistle at her, I don't know how old she was, but I know she was in her 80s. So at that point in time, you're living on borrowed time anyway. If you know your Bible, then you know that God promises really about 70 years. Now, obviously, things can happen in between that where your fate could be, determined in another, fate or manner. But if you know your Bible, you know that it says 4 scores, and I'm forgetting all of it, but I know that for sure. But people like that are allowed to get old, not face, the actions for their crimes and the results of, acts such as those. But for some reason or another, we in the Black community, and I'm not a celebrity, it's just as you are allowed to get old and as you are allowed to experience things and go through things, something in your mind should tell you that you cannot do things that people outside of our community do and get away with them. And I don't know if it's the fact of the power, it's the result of the money, it's the result of the fame, it's the result of everything that you have access to. I actually talked about this in a past episode. Just because you have access to something does not mean that you should partake in whatever is or whatever could come of those actions. Like, just because you're a millionaire or because you're a billionaire, does that mean you should try to be a trillionaire? If you're a millionaire, does that mean you need to become a billionaire? You'll never spend all that money in your lifetime anyway, right? So just because you have access, just because you have the access to opportunity, you have the access to everything that's needed to get to where you want to be, if you're of that echelon. Just because you have the access to do that doesn't mean that you necessarily should. And I feel like the situations that Diddy and R. Kelly have found themselves in, they've allowed themselves to be consumed by the power, the money, and the fame, and allows them to think that they could treat people in however type of manner and fashion in which they have, commit acts that they've allegedly committed. Well, it's not allegedly for R. Kelly anymore because he's actually been, sentenced on those particular things that he was accused of doing. There's actual evidence of the things that he's done. So it's no longer alleged in regards to R. Kelly. With Diddy, we've actually seen him put his hands on a woman in a manner that wasn't becoming or something that a man should ever do when talking or dealing with the woman. So it's really interesting to see their fall. And I mean, at some point, it's not even necessarily about the money either. Like, I remember reading a piece probably a month or so ago, or it might be even a little later, when it talked about who Diddy was at Howard University and how his interactions were with women at that point in time also. And obviously he was somebody who was building and working his way up at that time. But even still, like, he was notable at that time. Obviously not as big as he eventually became, but I feel like he was a notable person. He was a notable person at that time as well. So even then, you would think that you need to stop feeding the beast at some point in time in order to be, or in order to achieve the necessary success that you have. But along the way, you now have to look at Diddy. You have to take a look at his entire career, the things that he's done, the reason where groups broke up, or everybody who was ever signed to Bad Boy who have negative things to say about him. Everyone is not lying. So when you see something like this happen to Diddy, is this karma? I don't know if it's necessarily karma, but you can't just continue to do things in the shadows and think that at some point they won't make their way to the light. And I think that he just got so far gone that he allowed himself to be placed in this situation. And now the floodgates have opened on him. And there is nothing, to be honest, that he can do about it. Obviously, he'll have his day in court, but in the court of public opinion, in the court of his peers, in the court of people who have done business with him, he is finished almost. And it's unfortunate to see that it came to this, but you have to do something different. You can't just allow yourselves to be, well, you can't allow yourself to achieve that level of notoriety and success, and then you just flip the switch and you just forget about, I don't know. It's tough to speak about. Like I said, I was having a conversation with some friends, and I was actually having a conversation with my homegirl about, you know, what he could have done differently, or just the entire ordeal in regards to how it led to him getting to where he now is. And I was telling her, I said it's sad because when we get to that level of fame and notoriety, we can't handle it. But can you imagine the level of narcissist you have to be to continue to get online, continue to make videos, and be that confident, talking about love and all other stuff, and all, well, I'll just read exactly what I said. But can you imagine the level of narcissist you have to be to continue to get online, continue to make videos, and be that confident, talking about love and all that shit, knowing the vile, destructive stuff you're doing when no one's watching? I said, that's the wild part to me. And then we continued the conversation, and I was just saying that it's crazy how we see our legends rise, but we also see them fall as well. And again, we talked about R. Kelly. We didn't even mention Bill Cosby. Well, I didn't mention Bill Cosby here on the episode as of yet, but Bill Cosby, I mean, we all know who he was. He was considered to be Black America's father with the Cosby Show. But as things went on, we learned a little bit more. Well, we learned a lot more about Bill as well. Like, it's unfortunate. It's really unfortunate. So I guess now we just have to, see what's going to happen from here, and whatever comes of his indictment. He has now had at least 2 bond hearings, and they've been denied both times. And I think this last hearing, he offered $50 million to get out, and they denied that. So I don't even think it's about his money anymore. Like, they want to take everything from him. They want to strip that from him. They want his assets. Now, I don't necessarily think that they have rights to his, to his assets, because I don't know. I just think that's really wild to take something that someone has built and something that they've worked for. If how they got it, like, he wasn't Pablo Escobar or anything like that. So it's kind of wild for me to think that they're going to be able to seize his assets when I don't think we've known or read anything about him being a drug dealer or anything like that, or committing those types of actions. So I don't think that it's actually fair for them to try to seize his assets. But any other criminal actions in regards to, I don't know what happens at his sex parties. I don't know if that's just, if it was consensual, then obviously, it's just it's just a party that you just shouldn't be at. But anything outside of that, I mean, it's free game. I just don't think his assets are something that they should be able to get. But outside of that, if he did something illegally or criminally, obviously what he did to his artists on Bad Boy, I mean, I think that just goes without saying. So if they take the assets and pay those artists out, I'm totally fine with that. Also, he allegedly shot a woman in the face, and Shine took the rap for him, and Shine has pretty much came out and said, and obviously he doesn't go by Shine anymore, because he's now a council person in his city, back from where he's from. But yeah, I mean, criminal acts for sure. He should absolutely be held accountable for that. If none of the things that happened at his parties were consensual, he should absolutely be held accountable for that. If they want to seize his assets in order to pay off the people who were signed to Bad Boy, who felt like they didn't get their just due, or obviously the sexual assault allegations and lawsuits that's coming out against him, absolutely, you absolutely seize the assets in order to take care of those things as well. But I don't think he should just be left high and dry, though. I don't think that. But yeah, I just wanted to talk about that because it's something that is unavoidable. It's amazing to see how our stars have fallen, and obviously I'm alive to see the downfall. I was alive to see their heights, but to see the downfalls is equally as interesting as well. So I wanted to touch on that. Let's jump into this YSL trial, because I think it is extremely interesting. Extremely interesting. So, living here in Georgia, it is obviously the longest tenured trial in Georgia state history. I can't think of a trial that I've seen that's, well, to be honest, I haven't been really watching trials like that. But the YSL trial is so interesting because I know growing up with my great grandmother, she watching her soap operas, and my mama too. My mama's favorite soap opera was The Young and the Restless. Then it was All My Children, and it was another one. I think it was One Life to Live or something like that. Yeah. So those are my mother's favorite three. Now, what she didn't get into was like General Hospital. General Hospital was the one that I watched with my great grandmother. So watching the YSL trial for me is like my soap opera. Like, on my off days, I watch it. And even when I'm not off, I watch the YSL trial every day that it's on. Like, every day that it has been on. I think I might have missed like the early preliminary stuff with the opening statements and things of that nature. So I missed that. But covering it, working at a news station here, obviously it comes across your desk. And at some point, you just want to tune in, because obviously you know who Thug is, and you know a little bit about YSL and stuff, but you don't know what the state is alleging and saying happened with YSL. I think we all heard about Lil Wayne's tour bus getting shot up, and I don't think that was a surprise to anyone. But when that came out, there was so much talk and conversations about how Thug was the one responsible for doing that. And I remember back in 2015, I was just like, what? Why are they shooting up Lil Wayne tour bus? Like, that's crazy. I don't understand that. But the whole time, and I've only been in Atlanta for like 2 years, but just, again, being a consumer of the culture and the music and everything like that, when I think the general consensus is Lil Wayne is the best rapper alive. Now, you have people who also consider Jay-Z to be the best rapper alive as well. So, I mean, you can't really contest that. But I'm from the South. I'm from Mississippi. So, I was never going to say that Jay-Z was a better artist or a better rapper than Lil Wayne, just being from where I'm from. But, I mean, it's debatable. If you have a favorite, obviously I'm going with Wayne all day, every day. But I have no issues with Jay-Z being considered as well. But anyway, so when you heard about that in 2015, it didn't come across your mind, unless you live here in Atlanta anyway, that Young Thug might have been responsible for that tour bus shooting. Might have. And I'm saying might because it has not been proven to be actual fact. But who knew 9 years later that specific act would be a part of a RICO indictment against Young Thug and his co-defendants in this trial, where the state of Georgia is basically saying that the DA here is real big and basically platforms and campaigns on being tough on crime, tough on gangs. Like that is her thing. So who could imagine, who would even thought that would be a part of a RICO in 2024? But I think the thing that I've gotten from watching the YSL trial, you watch law, and I feel like, just as a black person, the justice system overall has never been fair, favorable, or equal when it comes to us. And you can go into something watching, and you can go in with preconceived notions about, oh, well, free Thug didn't do this, so and so, right? But you want to see what they have, right? Because I think that is what makes a trial. You want to know what the state has. You want to know how they're going about, or how they are going to prove that Young Thug, first of all, had enough time, he had enough access, he had enough people to commit the acts that they are alleging that he did. And one of the things about the RICO Act is Young Thug did not even have to do these specific acts. But what the RICO does is place him at the top of the food chain as the head honcho. Like, we've all seen Power. We've all seen, and maybe you all haven't seen The Wire. I finally watched The Wire a couple years ago, and it was magical. But if you watch any detective show, like, you've seen the whiteboard, right? And you've seen the picture of the guy who's at the top of the whiteboard. And then they work their way down in descending order of the level of importance of the players, right? So let's say Young Thug did not do any of the stuff that they are accusing him of doing. But what they are accusing him of is being the Don. If you're Italian, they are considering him to be the Don Dada. He is the head honcho. He is the kingpin. He is the person that's calling the shots behind the scenes. And because he have the financial savviness, and because he have the means, meaning that, let's say he wanted to put a hit on somebody, because of who he are as a rapper and as an entertainer, like, he has the amount of money to do, if he has a problem with anyone, what the state is trying to say is that he has the power and the means to call the shots. He has a mean to put money on somebody's head. If he wants somebody gone, he has the financial wherewithal to pay for a specific act to be done, and they'll commit the act. So all of the stuff, the shooting up of Lil Wayne's tour bus, him allegedly having some beef with a guy who was killed, the beef between him and Rich Homie Quan. Like, there is just so much stuff that I'm learning about what's happened in Atlanta, not living in Atlanta during that time, and just being an outside consumer of Atlanta hip-hop and Atlanta culture. Being here now and watching this trial and living through the trial and seeing how it goes, seeing how the streets and stuff work here, it's really interesting. But I think one of the things that what I'm really caught by in watching this trial is when they show videos from back in 2015 or even a little earlier than that, some of the players in this trial were damn near teenagers. And even as a teenager, you're a child. Obviously, up until you become 18, when they consider you of legal age, they consider you to be an adult. But when you watch some of this body cam video, when you watch some of the footage of the interviews that they're having with these people in the interrogation rooms, these people are kids. Teenagers, yes, but they're kids. And I think one of the things that we fail to realize is that it's a known fact that women are just naturally smarter and more intelligent than men. Women mature faster than men do. The man's frontal lobe does not fully develop until he is past the age of 25, and mostly between the age of 25 to 29. That is when the man's frontal lobe is fully developed, and the decisions that he is making during those points in his life are decisions that he must be responsible and accountable for. I don't know how old Young Thug is now. As a matter of fact, let me ask Siri. Hey, Siri.
Uh-huh.
How old is Young Thug?
Young Thug is 33 years old.
Okay, so Young Thug is 33 years old, and this is 2024. So back in 2015, Young Thug was about 24, 23, 24, depending on whenever his birthday falls. I'm 34, and he's 33. So I was 25 in 2015. So he was about around the same age, 24, 25, whatever, right? So at that point in time, and I'm not saying that I do not want to make any excuses for Young Thug, because obviously I don't know Young Thug personally. I didn't grow up in Atlanta. I didn't live in Atlanta during that time. So who knows, besides the people that were actually living here and the people who were actually, going through these trials and tribulations with one another. They are the only ones who can specifically say that they have a better idea of what was going on here between YSL, which is the state is trying to call a gang, Young Thug and his attorney and his crew. They are calling YSL a label, but there are also other street gangs out here, such as If Gang, for an example, which is an extension of the LA Bloods, but they are Georgia, obviously, the Atlanta Bloods or whatever. So yeah, they're trying to say that he had the ability to call the shots. And when you think about it, at that time, he was obviously a part of Rich Gang with Birdman and Rich Homie Quan and stuff like that. So he was obviously making some good money. And obviously that was a time where Birdman and Lil Wayne weren't seeing eye to eye in regards to there being a rift and a dissension between the two. So you had that going on as well. But I want to get to my point. I'm not defending Young Thug. If he did the acts, if they can prove that he did what they are claiming and alleging that he did, then he should go to jail. I mean, it's just a part of the justice system. It's a part of the law. It's just what goes along with it. But I think my thing is, and I guess the question that I have for you all is, what does redemption look like? in this situation. I'm genuinely curious because, like I was saying, when you watch these videos, when you watch the interviews that they were doing, um, the person who's currently on the stand right now to this trial is Lil D. Lil D has sickle cell and all types of stuff, all types of health issues that he's dealing with. And they showed an in-person interview that he did. I don't know how old Lil D is. He looks like he's in his, well, he looks a little rougher now, obviously, because he's been dealing with health issues and just the type of life that you live as well. But the video that they showed of him in a interrogation room, he was a child. He was damn near a baby. So when you see that video, it's like, dang. It was, you just don't know what they're going through at that time in their life. They're looking for belonging. You don't know what's going on in the household. Like, there are so many different factors that you really have to take into consideration when it goes into, criminal acts being committed, trying to get on the right path, trying to do the right things. And it's hard. Like, there's a very popular phrase that a lot of athletes, up and coming athletes use, and it's called POME. And POME is basically product of my environment. Now, just because you grow up in a certain environment does not mean that you have to succumb to what the environment is. You have to do what the people in the environment are doing. But naturally, we just got to be honest. Naturally, you're going to do that because it's what you're around. It's what you see every day. It's what you know. Yeah, you might not want to jump off the porch, but what happens if you decide to jump off the porch? Because once you do that, you are a part of you've always been a part of the community, right? There is and this is just an example I'm going to use. There is a battle rapper, and he's a rapper also. His name is Sue Surf. And if you're involved in culture at any point or part, you know that Sue Surf is a rapper from Newark, New Jersey. And I'm an avid battle rap watcher. So I've been a fan of Sue Surf for over 10 plus years now. We are about we're the same age, basically. But I'll never forget, he was getting ready to battle because he's a battle rapper as well. He's most famously known for being a battle rapper, but he is a really good rapper who has tracks with like Albie Al, Mozzie. Like, he's done tracks with some heavy hitters in the hip hop world. So that goes without saying. But I'll never forget, he was getting ready to battle this battle rapper from Detroit named Calico. And Calico's father was a member of BMF. And obviously, you should be pretty familiar, pretty aware with BMF being from Detroit, how they, early 2000s, BMF was it. Like, you heard about BMF even living in Mississippi, but you didn't really know the magnitude of what they were doing and how they were moving. And again, at that time, I was a child, so I wasn't just that into what they were doing. I was just obviously listening to the music. I was a big fan of Jeezy, and Jeezy was a member of BMF at that time also. So that is the extent of that. But just getting back to my example. Okay, so Calico's father was a member of BMF. And Sue Surf was getting ready to battle Calico in a rap battle. And I think Sue Surf was really bothered by the type of tone and conversation that Calico was talking to him about. Calico was basically trying to take away his street card and stuff like that. And I think it's something that was really interesting. And I want to find this example so you can hear what they were saying, because I think it's extremely important. The example that Sue Surf used when he was talking to Calico. Let me see if this is it. I want to play it.
And you, come on, you can't be a street bro. Shut up, bro. Your shit it contradict, bro. You're a street nigga that's out here with wild niggas that's getting all this money, but you got fucking fishbowl, but you in the trenches.
You ain't never seen me in no Toyota or nothing. It's funny though.
With fucking Nunu in a fucking in a Patron bottle, bro. That shit was clear, see through, bro. Oh, that's caliber right there. I can see you clear as shit.
In a brand new Impala.
You clear as shit with the yellow tag on the visor. That's I can tell.
That's a brand new Impala. I'm from Detroit.
We don't.
That's smooth. That's smooth. You gotta move around Detroit a certain type of way. I like a regular brand new Impala. I like that. I like that.
You got it, bro.
You want me to be riding around in Detroit in a Porsche? That's what you want me to do?
No, tent that shit, bro. All this money you getting, tent that motherfucker.
You ain't gotta. They can see who in it. Ain't nobody trying to kill me. I handle business.
I don't like this nigga, bro.
You got people trying to kill you in Jersey, so you gotta be tinted. I get it. I totally understand. I could pull up to anywhere in Detroit without no tent. They can see who in it. It don't matter.
It's always the niggas that ain't into nothing.
All right, so now it's about to get to the point that I'll actually want to what I want to go into my example, and hopefully this makes sense to you.
You run around here acting like you wild. You not wild, nigga. Your daddy was wild. You a fucking rapper, like you said, nigga. Dead homies, you a rapper, nigga. Act like it, nigga. Them buffs is cool. Being from Detroit is cool. You from a street place. You're of street essence. Everybody on the block is from the street. Even a little nigga sitting on the porch that's just watching the niggas trap. Technically, he from the block. Even a nigga that's just walking down the street going to school. Technically, he from the block because he live here. You just a nigga that was on the block. Act like that, my nigga, for real. Y'all niggas is weirdos talking all this because you got shot. You would have died, dummy. You would have died. You don't even know how to act in them type of situations. Oh, nigga, from this side, let me go that way. Oh, you don't know. You don't got them type of instincts at all. Have no fucking shots fly at you, nigga. You dumb, nigga. Niggas try to kill me, nigga. Fuck is you talking about? Niggas try to kill me and I got a zipper forever, nigga. Fuck is you talking? You sound stupid. Real niggas don't even play like that. I don't even talk about niggas. You know, I don't even talk about niggas getting shot. I would never talk about niggas getting shot. You're fucking dweeb.
They gonna be that baby right there.
So I use that example to say, when you talk about products of your environment, right? So technically, what he's saying that everybody, the kid that's on the block, the kid that's going to school, the kid that's doing the right thing, he's not from the block? No, but he's from the hood. So he has the ability to do something different with his life. But he also has the ability to take that other path if he isn't strong enough or he isn't strong-willed enough to resist what comes along with that, right? So when it comes to the YSL trial and looking at these people now, who they were 10 years ago, a lot of the questions that's being asked in the trial are about things that occurred in 2015, 2011 and 2012, right? 2011, I was 21 years old. 2015, I was 25 years old. I personally have a good memory. So I can't tell you what I was doing on a specific day, but I could tell you what might have occurred in that year. I could tell you what might have occurred when I was 21. Obviously, I was a junior in college going on to my senior year. In 2015, I was getting ready to graduate from the University of Mississippi with my master's in journalism. If you ask me about specific stuff that happened in 2015, yeah, I could probably recall that. I just look at these videos in the YSL trial, and it's just like, it's baffling. No, it's not. It's not baffling. It's interesting because you see that they were kids. They were kids. And when I say kids, teenagers. Thug obviously wasn't a teenager, but he was still 25. But some of the people that he was allegedly with and doing stuff with, they were around that age. They were late teens, like they were teenagers. So to see these people now, like almost 10 years later, it makes me wonder if there is a bit of redemption. Can they be redeemed? If you're watching the YSL trial, and again, my whole thing is, if they committed the crimes and if there's just proof that they did what is being alleged that they did, then absolutely, they should absolutely pay whatever it is for the crimes that they committed. But the job of the state is to prove and to put all the pieces of the puzzle together that shows that they did actually commit these crimes and they are and should be held responsible. But I'm looking at it just from an entirely different lens. That is how I'm looking at it. Is there any redemption? Or is there any chance for redemption in these situations? So it's been really interesting to watch. And again, I know I was talking about how this is my soap opera and this is what I watch. And I know a lot of us watch it and we look at it like it's entertainment. But in reality, it's not entertainment for the people in the courtroom. It's not entertainment for the people on the stands. It's certainly not entertainment for Young Thug, because if he's convicted under this RICO Act, he's probably going to get between about 20 to 30 years in prison. And that is pretty much the majority of his life, the great years, or what they could be. And it's really interesting. It's really wild to think about and consider. What I've taken away, obviously, is that it's just a really general question. Is there room for redemption in this situation? Is there room for redemption in this case for these young black men who are now of age to where their actions, where they're on trial to be held accountable for their actions? So that's interesting to see. It looks like the results are in for the Young Dolph trial, so I'm about to play that. Hold just one moment. I'll be right back. All right, y'all, I'm back. So Justin Johnson was convicted on all 3 counts in the murder of Young Dolph, and the judge sentenced him to life in prison. He has to appear before the court again for the next 2 charges that he faces. So looks like justice was served in this case, and it appears that there is sentencing for 2 other individuals who were involved in setting up and plotting the murder of Young Dolph as well. So justice was served. Obviously, I know his girl and his children wish that he was still here and, could hold them and hug them and do all the things that he did as a father with them. Super unfortunate that a man's life was taken for only $800. No one's life should be taken in that manner in general, but to kill a millionaire for $800 when you were promised at least $40,000 between you and the guy that you were gonna split it with is nuts. So, yeah, justice for his family, and hopefully they feel some sort or some sense of relief today than when their loved one was killed 3 years ago. So rest in peace, Young Dolph, and may God continue to uplift your family, your children, and keep them as sane as he possibly can through these trying times. So before I left off, I was talking to you guys about redemption and what that looked like, and I played a clip from battle rapper Sue Surf talking about the point that I was making when it comes to the product of your environment and things of that nature. If you guys don't know who Sue Surf is, like I said, I'm an avid battle rap watcher, so that's how I know who he is. But he was shot a number of times. I want to say like in 2018, I believe. He was shot multiple times. Somebody pulled up on the side of a car that he was in and shot into the car. And he was shot and he was hit multiple times. And basically what he was telling his opponent, Calico, was that, this isn't something to be playing about. This isn't something to be laughing about. And it's not something that you should be joking about anyway. Yeah, your dad was a member of BMF. He's obviously a product of his environment, and you are a product of that environment as well. But you hadn't gotten into any of the stuff. You hadn't jumped off the porch, essentially, like he jumped off the porch, Sue Surf. Again, we're talking about products of your environments and stuff like here and things like that. But not to go too deep down the rabbit hole. But again, when it comes back to the YSL trial, and like I was saying, it's just an interesting dynamic to see who they were 9 years ago and who they are now, and the things and the crimes that are being held over their heads from actions that they allegedly committed 9 years ago. So, do you guys think redemption is possible? Is it feasible? Because I know in the same breath, you have to look at the family who was affected by their potential actions. Again, this is all alleged because it hasn't been. They're going through court now. This is the longest trial in Georgia history, so this stuff is still being proven. But I just think that it's an interesting dynamic, and if redemption is something that is even tangible, is it something feasible to even think about or consider? And I know I've talked about Diddy and I've talked about R. Kelly, and I know people have their own thoughts and opinions about the actions that they have committed. But as I've spoken to you guys in this episode, I think redemption is a big theme here. It's so easy to judge people when you don't know the circumstances of the households that they were brought up in, and I think that obviously plays a factor. I know R. Kelly, for an example, we've learned a little bit about his trauma and the things that he was exposed to at a young age. So because he was exposed to these things, he pretty much repeated the actions. Now, does that make it okay? No, it absolutely doesn't. But there are so many different factors at play. And again, I'm not the person that tries to play judge, jury, and executioner, because it's so easy to look at an act that someone committed and you think that they acted with malice, or you think that the act was intentional, when in some cases this is learned behavior, right? And again, just because it's a learned behavior does not mean that you continue on with the action and you continue to get sidetracked and repeat the behavior. That's not what this is about, and I'm not trying to make any excuses, but I think you have to look at all factors at play. You can't just point to one thing specifically and just expect for that to be so cut and dry, so black and white, because it's not. I was just legitimately wondering, is redemption possible to you guys in any of these situations, in any of these scenarios that I've talked about and discussed? And I'm just genuinely interested and genuinely curious if it's possible or if it's attainable even. So those were the things that I wanted to talk about specifically in this episode. And again, I'm not the biggest at sharing my thoughts and opinions, but I'm trying to get more into doing that as well, and just trying to. I like dialogue. I like conversations where we don't have to agree. We can agree to disagree, and we can just disagree altogether. But I'm just interested in knowing what other people think. I think it's so telling to where you see something and you just look at it from one lens. You think it's so cut and dry, but oftentimes there are other contributing factors that play a part in the behavior that people exhibit, whether that be in the actions that they commit, how they treat others, how they go about doing their business. Like, everything comes back to psychology, and I think that we can't just poo-poo that or look over it and think that it's not something that has a legitimate effect on society and the world that we live in and the world that we inhabit, and just the overall mood and functions of the world that we inhabit also. At the end of the day, we're all trying to get somewhere. And you would think that somewhere would be a place of prosperity, a place of mental and physical fitness. And at the end of the day, we just want to be in a different space that we might have originally started in. But somewhere along the lines, that can go off the rail, and you can commit certain acts that attributes to certain behaviors and certain things that isn't right, but you can try to get away with it because you've done that for so long. And like I was telling my friend in regards to Diddy, the roosters have come home to crow. There have been so many instances and so many situations where his name has come up and people have had questionable things to say about him. And over the years, it's I would say it's mostly gone. What is the word that I'm looking for? Maybe unchecked. I would say unchecked. As to recent, you've heard May speak out about the actions and the things that Diddy is facing. You've heard his artists who were signed to him, who have came out and talked about some of the things that he's done, some of the ways that he's purported himself in business in front of them, the way he's treated women, specifically Cassie, in front of them, making her shave the side of her head. And just imagine you are somebody who's watching a Cassie video and you see that and you're like, damn, that looks cool. That looks original. I've never seen that before. Right? And you just think that it's so cool and it looks good and everything, but you don't even know the trauma that that's rooted in. You don't even know that she didn't even want to do her hair like that. He did that to her, reportedly. So it just goes to say that I think so often social media gives us the ability to look into someone's life, and it could be someone we idolize, someone that we are wholly familiar with, and we are fans of how they got to become who they are, their journey, their progress, their process, the steps that it took to become them, right? But you don't know the things that they did to attain the level of success and the prosperity and the riches and the fame and the success that they have garnered and ultimately won over in our eyes. So that's one of the really misleading things about social media. Unless a person is just 100% honest with you, and you can't always know when or if that is even happening in general, but no one is going to tell you everything about their story and the things that they did to get to where they needed to be, because it takes a certain level of authenticity to do that. And that's why, for me, I was such a fan, and I'm such a fan of Nipsey Hussle, because Nip told you it's about the marathon, it's about the sprint. Stay down. You're going to go through some losses. You know, stuff is going to challenge you. Everything isn't going to always go your way. But one of the things that he stood on was values, morals, and principles, and integrity. Nip, you often heard Nip say, leave the goofy stuff where it is, because at some point it's going to self-destruct. And then you don't want people to know you for being someone who got to where you are based on the goofy stuff and the goofy behavior, because that says a lot more about you and your journey and the path that you took to get the things that you got in order to get to where you are. But look at what you did to get these things, right? Look at how you degraded yourself in the process. Look at how you demoralized yourself in the process. And look at how you lost yourself in the process, right? And along the way, I really think if Diddy is being honest, if R. Kelly is being honest, and anyone else or any other public figure, to be honest, looks themselves in the mirror and they find themselves in compromising situations, or, you know, find themselves looking at themselves in the mirror and just seeing like, yeah, I have this, I have that, but I'm not genuinely happy with how I went about getting it and how I attained it. And at the end of the day, they can't be happy with what they did to get there. So that's why I'm never wholly impressed by somebody posting on social media the highs of the highs, but don't post the lows. The lows are a part of your process. The lows are a part of your journey. So if you choose not to share the lows and you're only sharing the highs, there's a certain level of that that's disingenuous. Like genuine. What am I trying to say? When you're being genuine about your path, the progress, and the journey that it took, you will tend to attract and attain a lot more people, because there is a certain level of authenticity about that, about the journey, and about getting to where you want to be, that cannot be ignored, cannot be denied. Like, your demonstration has to sustain you. Your demonstration has to look like whatever it took for you to get there. That's the bumps, the bruises, the rises, the falls, having a lot of money, not having a lot of money, mental health issues, struggles, trying to make it to the next day, paying your bills, doing the necessary things to survive while also trying to chase your dreams as well and become the person that you ultimately want to be. When I think about that, we didn't see Diddy's path in that way. We only saw Diddy's path was filled with destruction along the way. We saw a lot of bravado, right? We saw a lot of the good times. I can't think of too much of the bad times of Diddy that we've ever seen. Obviously, losing his first wife, and even now, I mean, there are allegations that he might have had something to do with that. I don't know. It's a really interesting dynamic when you think about it, and it's so interesting to see that fall from grace. It's really interesting because how much of it is authentic or was authentic, and I think that is a really telling thing when you sit back and look at it. It's real telling. Where was the authenticity in the message and in the story? Yeah, we saw the movie Notorious, right? And we only saw it from Diddy's perspective and how Diddy said that it played out and how Diddy think that it went. But if B.I.G. lived, it would be really interesting to see if he stayed with Puff, now P. Diddy. It would be real interesting to see if he would have stayed and if his journey would have continued with him. And honestly, with the way that everything has shaken out and just seeing where Diddy is now, that's kind of hard to see and hard to believe. So the overall theme for this episode, again, I wonder, is redemption possible? If it is, what does that look like? I would love to hear your thoughts and opinions and comments on this episode. You can reach out to me. Again, I'm on all social media platforms at Sip My Thoughts. If you want to shoot me an email, sipmythoughts@gmail.com. I would love to hear some feedback. That way I can incorporate it into my next episode, possibly have a Q&A, read some of the responses that goes along with it. And I would just love to know what you guys think about this episode. So give me a shout. Let me know what you think. Please follow me on all social media platforms at Sip My Thoughts. Again, you can reach me at sipmythoughts@gmail.com as well. And I would love to hear your response, and I would love to tap in with you and have continued dialogue about this episode. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you all for listening. Until next time, peace. Also, please continue to support the pod. I'm going to be more consistent. I know I say this every episode, but I like to have things that I'm talking about. I like for things to have substance. And I just like dialogue at the end of the day. So definitely tap in with me. Thank you all. Peace.